In this movie, I'll show you how to create these simple reflection lines along the handle. And along the way, I'll share some insights. Nothing terribly earth-shattering, however. This is mostly just an opportunity to spend some more time with the rectangle tool. One thing I will tell you, however, is that if you want to retain the specialness of these rectangles, then you need to save them in the Illustrator CC format. They are not backward compatible with the Illustrator CS6 format, to which I've saved most of the exercise files associated with this course, with the obvious exception of this chapter, of course. All right, so let's say what I want to do is I want to build a white reflection based on this black handle shape, which means I need to start things off by duplicating the shape in place. And so I'll go up to the Edit menu and choose the Copy command, and then I'll return to the Edit menu and choose Paste in Front. That is, of course, Control-C, Control-F on the PC, or Command-C, Command-F on the Mac. Now I want to make this shape shorter by dragging on its top handle using the rectangle tool, but I can't. And that's because I maxed out the roundness of these corners over here on the left-hand side. So I'll need to start things off by unrounding the corners all the way. So as you can see in the heads-up display, I'm taking the radius all the way down to 0 point so that we have some perfectly sharp corners. And now I'll reduce the height of this rectangle. And notice if I just drag down like this, then I'm going to drag down the top of the shape and the bottom of the shape is going to remain in place. If I want to modify the height or the width, for that matter, of the shape with respect to its center, then I need to press and hold the Alt key or the Option key and keep that key down until I release the mouse button at a height value of 8 points. So I'm going for a very skinny shape, as you can see right here. And just so we can tell it apart from the shape in the background, I'm going to change its fill by clicking on the first swatch on the far left side of the control panel and setting it to white, like so. I also want the shape to be a little shorter, so I'm going to zoom in here just so I don't mess anything up. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this edge inward until I have a width value of exactly 450 points, as we're seeing right there. Something else you may want to know about these rectangles is that they're treated as special shapes inside of Illustrator. And so, for example, notice if I position my cursor very close to one of these corner handles, then I get a rotate cursor and I can rotate that shape. I'll go ahead and drag it down to 10 degrees and change, let's say. And that value is permanently tracked in the transform panel. And to see that, all I need to do is double click on one of these circular widgets right here in order to bring up the transform panel. And there you can see it. We have a rotate value that you can change as much as you like. So I can change it to 25 degrees. I can set it to negative 15 degrees, in which case Illustrator is going to translate it to a positive equivalent, as we're seeing here. Or I can take that value back down to 0 degrees in order to make the shape upright. And by the way, this is a special attribute associated with rectangles. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and round off the left-hand corners here by changing these two values. Notice that the roundness values are unlinked. So I'm going to change these first two values to 4 points like so, and that is it in order to produce this effect right here. All right, now I'll hide the transform panel for a moment, and I'll go ahead and scroll over by spacebar dragging a few times over here to this metallic portion of the handle. And I'm going to do pretty much the same thing I did before. I'll go ahead and press the Control key or the Command key on the Mac in order to get my black arrow tool on the fly. I'll click on this shape to select it. I'll press Control-C, Control-F, that's Command-C, Command-F to copy and paste that shape in front. And then with my rectangle tool still active, I'll go ahead and drag down on that top handle while pressing and holding the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac so that I'm scaling the shape with respect to its center until I get a height value of 4 points. At which point I'll go ahead and release, and then I'll click on this first swatch in the control panel over here on the left-hand side and change the fill to black in order to produce this effect here. All right, now I want to add a few small shapes, and I just happen to know how big they should be. So I'm going to click any old place inside the document window in order to bring up the rectangle dialog box. And I'll change the width value to 8 points and the height value to 4 points, and I'll click OK in order to create this shape right there. And now I'm going to press the V key to switch back to my black arrow tool. And I'll go ahead and drag the top left point of this shape until it snaps into alignment right here with this horizontal guideline. And now I'll make a copy of the shape over at this location. So I'm pressing the Shift and Alt keys, or the Shift and Option keys on the Mac in order to duplicate that shape on the fly. Now I'll shift-click on this rectangle so both of them are selected, and I'll drag these guys over to here to the right side of the metallic portion of the handle, and I will once again press the Shift and Alt keys or the Shift and Option keys on the Mac in order to duplicate those shapes. And the reason the Shift key is down is to make sure that I constrain the angle of my drag to exactly horizontal. All right, now I'm going to shift-click on these other black shapes I just created. So now I have a total of 5 shapes selected, and I want to create a copy of these guys down lower here. So I'll press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac to bring up the Move dialog box. I'll change the horizontal value to 0, and I'll set the vertical value to 14, which is going to move those shapes down 14 points, and then I'll click on the Copy button in order to create a copy of those shapes. All right, now you can see that we have some pretty gnarly stacking problems. This black shape here is in front of these white shapes, which it shouldn't be. And these guys are all in front of the big circle. And so when you get into situations like this, you're often best off sending things to back in separate passes. So for example, I'm going to start just by marqueing these central shapes right here. And then I'll right-click anywhere inside the document window, choose Arrange, and choose Send to Back in order to get those guys in back. And now I'll just marquee everything, because we still have some problems, everything associated with the metallic portion of the handle. And I'm just partially marqueing. I don't want to select any of the circles or the black portion of the handle over here on the left side of the document. And with all of these shapes selected, I will once again right-click inside the document window, choose Arrange, and choose Send to Back. And we end up with this much more acceptable effect here. At which point, I'll go and zoom out by pressing Control-0 or Command-0 on the Mac. And just so you can see those reflections a little more clearly, I'll turn off the guides layer for the moment. And you can see that while it's by no means a photorealistic effect, it looks quite good for a stylized drawing. And that's how you add some very simple reflections using a combination of the rectangle and black arrow tools.